Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and welcome back to the Retroactive and Padded Comic Vault. Today, we're going to take a look at Three Jokers, a story that I expected to see years ago and we finally got just recently. This is the first time, it's kind of exciting, in a long time that I've done a comic series just after it finished like this. This has only been done for a few weeks and I read this over Christmas break and thought I would go ahead and tackle it. So let me preface this by saying I have not been keeping up real hard with current comics. It's possible that there are some recent things that inform this that I've not read that could color my opinion on it a little bit here and there. I expect that there will be some statements I will make that I might have tweaked or not made at all if I was more familiar with more recent things and certain things in the last few years in the Rebirth and post-Rebirth world, particularly with characters like Red Hood. But I suspect that a lot of my issues with this would hold regardless. So I guess I'll find out down the road after some feedback. This is, again, a thing that I thought we would see way before this, of course. There's a big question mark for a long time. How come Geoff Johns hasn't finally done something with this Three Jokers idea that he set up in the Rebirth one-shot that kicked off the new relaunch after New 52 kind of fell apart? And it was a really intriguing notion that you had these three Jokers running around. Each of them, it looked like they were depicting or representing a different era of the Joker in Batman comics, and the big question seemed to be, has the Joker been different people all along? And maybe that explains why he has different modus operandi sometimes, why he seems to be characterized differently, and seemed to be, to me, a way to continue on with Joker stories past what seemed like the death of the Joker. After the penultimate arc of Scott Snyder's Batman run, and it looked like he was dead and gone, and the big question was, how are we going to bring him back? This is one of those things I'm kind of confused about, and that I'm wondering if there's something that explained it that I've just not looked at, because the Joker just kind of unceremoniously starts showing up in Tom King's run. And I don't just mean the flashback stuff. I mean in present day, he seems to just pop in, and there didn't seem to be any explanation as to what happened to him and why he's able to be back now. He's just back, and I expected this story to fill in the blanks on that, and it doesn't at all. It's just another Joker story that is dropping big bombshells, and in my opinion, for really no good reason, and doesn't add anything that I find particularly compelling or fresh or necessary to Batman lore. I opened this saying retroactive. It very much feels that way. There's an unfortunate kind of fanfic-ish component to this, I think. I'm not saying it's all bad. There's some stuff I like about this. A lot of it is superficial, but at the end of the day, I think this is really convoluted, and it gets more so as time goes on. I don't feel like the Three Jokers idea is really merited at all at the end of this. It feels like a really compromised piece. It feels like a thing that wanted to be part of a much longer major arc or run of Batman, and it's relegated to 3 issues, and yet those 3 issues are kind of padded out, as I alluded to earlier, with art that is pretty but kind of unnecessary. And it seems like the whole thing is just a love letter to The Killing Joke. And I love Jason Fabok's art in this. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. But there are a lot of places where it seems like he's just doing the panel layouts of Killing Joke and doing a lot of visual homages to that for no better reason than that's a big, major, beloved Joker work, and we're wanting to add to it. And I don't think that that's necessary. Killing Joke has always been kind of an odd, off the beaten path Batman thing to me, where like it's really important, especially in the way it's characterizing the Joker and suggesting a possible backstory for the Joker, and really deconstructing the yin-yang Batman-Joker relationship, but I've never liked it as part of continuity. Alan Moore's work tends to not gel and fit real great in the grander scheme of canonical Batman, and so I always, and maybe this is just a personal taste thing, I always with that story wanted to just take the Joker shoots Barbara Gordon, and that's about it. Like, beyond that, and like, we retcon that thing all the time. This is the first time that I can think of since then. I'm sure there's other places that I've not read where we go back and allude to the family that the Joker apparently had in his background. I always read that as unreliable narrator, and that you couldn't be totally sure how much of that stuff even really happened, and that's kind of how you get away with making it part of canon if you have to have that. And then this also is in that gray area where I've never been totally sure how much of Killing Joke is supposed to be considered canonical, and that seems to be different depending on what that's building after it, does. And this has that too, where this reads simultaneously like a thing that really wants to matter, and also like a thing that is kind of off on its own, and I'm wondering how much writers will continue to build on this and do other things with it, and if there will, and full spoilers on this, if there will be any more mention down the road about the fact that Batman has apparently all along known the Joker's real name, if anything else is ever going to be done with that. Man, I just kind of wish we'd left Alan Moore alone, and this is an unsettling trend with Geoff Johns lately, where I felt that way with what he did with Watchmen as well, and I never finished that book, Doomsday Clock. I tried 3 or 4 times to start that book, and I'd get 3 or 4 issues in, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I really don't like it, and I've never finished it. Maybe it could turn me around when I finally do. I will try to finally sit down and read through that and do a review of that in the not-too-distant future, hopefully, but I've been stalling on that because I'm having a hard time getting through it, and Johns is kind of doing the same thing with Killing Joke now here with this 3 Joker story. So let's go ahead and get into this a little bit. So again, 3 oversized issues. This is in Black Label, which doesn't seem especially necessary to me. Having things that more or less look like they're supposed to be in continuity in a thing called with the word label in it is also very strange to me, because label implies imprint, which kind of implies it's its own thing. I think this is supposed to fit in continuity. It sure reads like it wants to, so that's kind of weird. It seems like it's just here because this is the place where the more rough and tumble books are supposed to go, and I respect that there is attention drawn to that on the cover, although all you have to do is have a mature warning and you're good. Like, it seems like this is just Black Label to A, say it's not for kids, which again you could do in other ways, and B, to make a bigger deal out of it and have a huge pristine format thing. Like, it seems like that's more what this is about than anything. And I don't know that it's all that much more violent or grotesque or rough and tumble than some of the things that DC publishes in its main line that don't have the Black label on them. So anyway, we open with, I think, kind of some unnecessary pages where Batman, we're dealing with the fact that Batman gets wounded a lot, and he's got all these scars from all these villains that have done all these horrible things to him, and so we see it with Bane and with Riddler and with Catwoman and on, and then with the Joker at the end. And the book is not really about Batman's scars as much as, I guess it is kind of, it is on the Joker's side, but it's kind of a lot more about what the Joker has done to Batman's sidekicks. And I think part of the problem for me is that we don't really get in Batman's head that much. This does not read like a Batman story to me as much as it does a story about the tragedy that's happened to other characters in Batman's life, to the Bat family. And I guess the idea is supposed to be that the Joker, the real Joker, as it were, and we'll talk about this more as we go along looking at this, wants Batman to see him as the be-all, end-all of what can hurt him, and nothing else matters. I guess that's the point of these opening pages, the more I'm looking at this, but it goes on, and it seems, again, a little bit padded to me, and then we're going to go back and flash back to the death of Batman's parents, again, for the umpteenth time. It's going to be more relevant than it sometimes is, because we're actually dealing with Joe Chill as a character in this book. I want to talk a little bit about, I may have to roll back here for a second, about the bat suit and visually what we're doing with Batman in this, because it's really interesting to me. One of the things I really like about this is that it does do a bunch of Batman 89 iconography, and of course that's my favorite look for Batman, so it's really neat to see that. We're going to have an homage to the 89 Batmobile a little bit later. It's a weird car, we'll talk about that. It's not just the straight up 89 Batman car, but this bat suit has exactly that cowl, a very similar bat symbol in the center, and that belt, and it even has the boots with the kind of V's going up and down the shoe, and I can't say I mind any of that. It's my favorite suit, or one of my favorite suits, certainly. But it's curious that that's the suit that these guys went with, because this feels like a Batman that I'm too walled off from. So he's characterized a little bit too much like the 89 Batman, and I really don't know if that's on purpose. I suspect that it's not. So we reintroduce Barbara Gordon and remind the audience that she is no longer Oracle, and that like that whole thing's not even talked about, but just the fact that she was crippled by the Joker and had to go through great strain and difficulty in order to get her legs back and start walking again, even though when she starts being able to use her legs again in New 52, it seemed like a miracle. It didn't really seem like she had to go through all of this, so that seems like some retconning from Geoff Johns, unless that's been retconned before, and she's flashing back to that horrible night, and we're establishing the version of the Joker that did that to her. This is all about different versions of the Joker, and we then reintroduce Red Hood and remind the audience what happened with Jason Todd and how the Joker in Death in the Family ostensibly murdered him, and we're going to talk a lot about the fact that he didn't actually die, but Batman just left him for dead. It also really sucks whenever we go back to that material, because I've always, and a lot of people feel this way, I've always much preferred the way Under the Red Hood dealt with it, that movie. So he actually died and was brought back via the Lazarus Pit, as opposed to being buried alive and not actually dying. One of the things that drives me crazy about this story is we're constantly talking about how Batman didn't do enough to help Jason after he found out that he was still alive, and in trying to get him away from the Red Hood persona and the killer and bring him back into the fold, and there's never a satisfying explanation for why he did that. Batman just keeps throughout this saying, "You never understood." And I never understand either, because it's never really dealt with. We never have a conversation with Batman and Red Hood, or in Jason, or even Batman and Batgirl, who questions him on this in a couple of different places. She'll say, Bruce, how come you helped me so much, but you didn't do anything for Jason? And the initial explanation is, well, we all thought he was dead, but it's like, yeah, but after that, I mean, he basically acts like Jason was just too far gone and there was nothing he could do, but he simultaneously says, we'll see this a little bit later, well, Barbara, I was hoping he would be more like you. Which is like a total non-answer. He clearly isn't like her. She's got the support network, and she even says that. She's got help, and he's completely alone and feels like nobody cares about him. And when he confronts Barbara about it later, he's going to say, well, nobody ever told me that they cared. and Batman has no explanation as to why he didn't do that. And he acts like there is one. It's like, well, nobody understands. And he just keeps saying that. He's like a rebellious teenager. Nobody understands me. And I find Batman extremely unsympathetic in this, where there's just a lot of places, and I get that Batman compartmentalizes, and he likes to work alone, and he's, you know, a total loner. He doesn't trust people, yada, 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 but the characters that he more or less does trust, he's not confiding in this, except for Alfred right at the very end, and that almost makes it worse, and we'll talk about more about that as we go along. But anyway, so we find out that the Joker seems to have murdered 3 people, or 3 sets of people, all at the same time, and it's an interesting mystery initially that in a few pages will immediately be given the answer to, and it will be a lot less interesting, and it totally falls flat for me very quickly. So here we're seeing that, and there's that wonderful 89 suit with that belt. Here we're seeing that the Joker has seemed to murder some random people, we don't know who they are, and put them in Red Hood suits, and he's killing people using his Joker toxin, and he takes them to the chemical plant where he died, and he seems to be sending some kind of a message about the creation of the Joker. And he has killed 2 other people in different ways as well, and I'm trying to remind myself what exactly he does to the others, but he's so he's murdered those people that look like Red Hood, and I'm trying to remember what the other 2 exactly are. Give me a second here. Oh, that's right. So there's a comedian who called himself Fat Man, who used to dress up in a bat suit, and so one of these Jokers has killed that guy, and then there's also a crime family that the Joker's always been after, and he's murdered someone from that family. And so we establish these 3 archetypes of the Joker, and each of those kills is from a different one. So you have the criminal, who is the Joker who murders someone from that crime family, and then you have the comedian who kills a comedian who is very clearly, obviously, the Joker from The Killing Joke. And spoiler alert, he's going to turn out to be, it seems like, the original real Joker. And these other 2 Jokers are made up. And I think it's wanting you to think that the original Joker is the criminal for a while, and he's the mastermind, he's running the show, or seems to be. And that's just a red herring. And then the whole Red Hood thing is because of the clown. And the clown is going to be the first of these to go. So we get, oh, I love this Batgirl suit, by the way. So we get, and I've been really sick of the late New 52 Rebirth Batgirl suit, so it's really nice to see a more traditional suit with the yellow in it. That excited me. Everything that excites me about this book is superficial. So we establish, I just think all this is so counterintuitive. We establish this idea of there being 3 different Jokers. And it seems like the mystery is, was there ever an original? Did we have multiple Jokers all along? What exactly is the Joker even? And then very quickly, we're gonna see all 3 of them in a room together, and that mystery gets deflated. Like, we still don't know exactly at that point, when they get in a room together, like what their plan is, and which of them is the original. But man, I didn't want to cut to them this early. Like, I wanted it to remain a mystery as to whether they're even really worth 3, or if all of that was somehow some kind of a ruse or something. But we do put them all together very quickly, and I guess there's something kind of provocative about that. So, like, on first read, I'm still with this a little bit, kind of curious about it, but it starts to get deflated more and more, especially once we kill one. So you have 3 Jokers. how could there be 3 of them? And then right away, we're going to have Red Hood murder one. It doesn't help that the way he murders this Joker is kind of contrived, because basically we're gonna find so that's, by the way, this is the criminal Joker, who is the self-proclaimed leader of these 3, and he's more about the crime itself, of course, than he is theatricality and everything. And it's interesting that in the face, he looks more like Cesar Romero than the other 2. Like, you'd think the clown would look most like Cesar Romero, but it's the criminal, in my opinion. And I don't know if that's deliberate, but that's kind of what he looks like to me. Anyway, so they're going to go to this aquatic place, this like aquatic center, and they're going to find a shark that is that classic Joker shark from the Joker Fish episode of Batman the Animated Series, and going back to the Englehart stuff, there's a lot of homage to really familiar classic Joker stories in this. And then, by the way, the Batlight thing is really hokey to me. That seems like something that would be on like a Batman action figure before anything. It's very Power Rangers, but it's fun. I don't know. This whole thing is such a weird mixed bag, because it's doing a lot of really fun, heightened comic stuff, but it's also trying to be really dead serious, and certainly sometimes that can work. It's fun to play those things straight and not call any attention to them, but some of it gets, I think, a little bit too hokey for this material, and I think that's just because it's taking itself really seriously, but I'm having a hard time taking it seriously myself because of some of the, weird counterintuitive choices it makes, and some of the really strange internal logic issues and just, I don't know, mistakes it's making. So we have an old Joker henchman that they fight, and then, long story short, they go up against this big shark, and then they're gonna actually manage to take down this Joker, and then Batman just leaves, and he leaves Barbara Gordon and Jason Todd to hang on to this Joker for him for a while, which seems like a giant mistake. Like, these are the 2 people most in the world you would not want alone in a room together with the Joker after their tragic past with him. And so what does gun-toting Jason Todd does not give a crap Red Hood do with this particular Joker? Well, of course, he murders him, but just gets lucky that there are 2 more, and that this is not actually the original Joker. And everything about this is really odd and kind of, again, I keep saying counterintuitive, but it is not, and just strange choices, very weird. So Batgirl immediately gets angry because we set up the age-old, very, very tired, should you kill the Joker question. If you kill the Joker, of course, you don't have to worry anymore about all the people that he's going to murder. But of course, in this particular case, there seem to be others, and we don't know which one is the real one, if any of them are. And Batgirl freaks out because this is not what Batman would do. And we are completely ignoring the elephant in the room, which is Jason Todd carries guns now. Like, are you telling me this is the first time he's ever killed anyone? I have not read a lot of Red Hood stuff, but I see him on covers and in panels of things that I have read that do have him in them with 2 guns, and he fires them regularly. So the whole conflict here is, oh no, Jason, you murdered the Joker. A Joker, doesn't matter which one. Batman is not too concerned about the fact that he's a murderer, and that is strange to Barbara. She thinks he's too flippant, and the reason he's that way is because he doesn't want... It's not for the reason that I would think maybe he would be, which is, well, yes, of course he's killing people. You ever noticed he carries guns? No, it's that he's worried that if Jason Todd gets arrested, he's going to have to be unmasked, and then Barbara being... This is such a weird situation. Barbara being the only person who was there as a witness would have to testify on the stand, and then they would all be outed, and people would find out that they were masked vigilantes. They would figure out who all of their secret identities were. And I'm like, okay, I mean, nobody knows who was in that building, and you guys are vigilantes and you skirt around the law all the time, so I don't know why this becomes a legal issue that way. And then it just unravels. I just start asking all these questions, like, why is Batman working with Red Hood in the first place? Like, why does he's not doing that regularly, but, like, why does he let Jason operate when he's clearly a loose cannon and you can't control him? There's no explanation for a lot of the MO of Batman in this story, and that whole situation is just absolutely preposterous to me. So we get into the second issue now, and you get this kind of pointless throwaway scene where one of the Jokers is pretending like he has a family, and I think, I may not be right about this, I think the idea is supposed to be that this is the comedian, and he's imagining his old family, and there's maybe some part of him that kind of misses his old life, and that he had a family. And the leader, the supposed leader Joker comes in and is like, what are you doing? This is a waste of time. And that's all, I think, supposed to call back to Killing Joke, and Lacey is letting you know that that is going to ultimately be the real, actual, true Joker. And let's talk about this car for a minute. It is simultaneously, to my eye, the Batman 89 car, which immediately, I meant to mention this earlier, I was excited about from the back. I was like, oh, cool. He's wearing that suit, and he's just going to have the 89 car, and this is Jason Fabok and maybe Geoff Johns asking him to do this, saying, this is the quintessential Batman look, and look for this car, and I agree. And then we cut to the front of it, and it's the BVS car, I think. So we just took the BVS Batmobile and we slapped the 89 fin on the top of it and gave it sort of the back also, except it's got two turbines instead of the one. Although, did Batman Returns have a double one, or was it still the one? I think it was still just the one. I can't remember. But as odd of a choice as that is, I think it actually looks pretty cool. We just took two... I don't want to necessarily say iconic with BVS, but a lot of people like that car, and I do too. But we took two, famous screen Batmobiles and just kind of slapped them together. So that's fun. I will say that, happily, if we had to make this Batman characterized more like one of those movie Batmans than the other, it's the 89 one, not so much the BVS one. This is not a Batman who's going around murdering people. It's just a Batman who is okay with Jason Todd murdering people, at least to the point where he doesn't get found out as Batman. There's all these places where Batgirl or somebody else will call him out and be like, you're just doing this because it saves your hide. And Batman has no answer. And the book seems to be maybe suggesting that he's more above board or more altruistic than that, and yet he never has an answer. So it doesn't read that way. It reads like they're absolutely right about it. And yet Batgirl continues to trust him all the way through, and that makes her just seem kind of naive. And yeah, she still looks like a very young Batgirl, but she's obviously been through a whole lot of stuff. So I don't know that I buy that. So the idea is going to be that this gets loopy. So the idea is the initially what it looks like is that the three Jokers, now there's just two already, want to create the perfect Joker. And they've decided to let Batman this time know that there's more than one of them, which immediately raises red flags for me, where on first read, where I'm like, okay, I really hope this pays off, and I get why now. Like, for years and years, they've been operating as three different Jokers or more. And this is the time that they decide that they're going to go ahead and let Batman know about it. And the reason at first we're led to believe is because they want to turn somebody into the Joker. Either Red Hood, because this turns into just a Red Hood story, either, which was disappointing to me with this initial premise, they're either going to turn Red Hood into the Joker or they're going to turn Joe Chill into the Joker. And the idea is that Batman would have to know about it so that he would appreciate that he's now going up against a Joker with an identity that is personally related to him, and that somehow it would matter more that like the Joker, you know, he's, all three of them, I guess, are supposed to be obsessed with that yin yang Batman Joker thing, because we can't stop deconstructing this relationship, and they don't want anybody else to count. And Batman has too many other enemies that are getting in his way, and he also has too many sidekicks that are in the way. So this time, let's create a Joker out of one of those people that matters too much to Batman. And both are kind of interesting ideas. I sort of wish that this story, instead of being this convoluted thing about there being multiple Jokers all along, which is an idea I like if there maybe if there truly were multiple Jokers the whole time and not one that was running the other two. I just don't really see ultimately what the point is of that. It seems like at some point he would get tired of them all, you know, kind of fighting for dominance and just murder the other two, or he would get murdered by one of them. Like, I don't buy that this has been going on for as long as it apparently has been. And then by the end, I don't buy the whole convoluted nature of this story, of this villain plot in the first place, and I'll get there in a second. But each of these as its own story is kind of, if we ran with it, is kind of an interesting notion, right? Like, let's take Joe Chill and try to turn him into a Joker into the Joker, because the Joker sees himself as the opposite of Batman, the other side of Batman, but he didn't get to create Batman. It's almost like it would almost be like if he wanted his origin to be intertwined with Batman's, like it is in Batman 89. Like and that would be a cool reason, by the way, to use this iconography too, is like, let's go back to 89 because Joker wishes that the world was like that movie. That would be really kind of interesting, I think. And maybe, you know, this is a totally different thing. I mean, I don't want to rewrite the story, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of potential in this idea. You could do a thing where, like, maybe the Joker is dying and he wants the legacy of the Joker to continue, so he's going to turn Joe Chill into the Joker, and then we finally reveal that, yes, all along he has known that Bruce Wayne is Batman. We will have that revelation at the end of this, and I don't know how you keep telling, you know, really, really fun, you know, traditional Batman Joker stories after you come right out and say, yes, Joker and Batman both know each other's identities, but that's what we have at the end of this, which is part of why I say, I don't know how much we're going to hang on to this and continue to work with this, you know, post this book. I guess we'll find out as time goes on. But then you also have the idea of Red Hood, and I thought this was a truly interesting idea, that the Red Hood is that Jason Todd is kind of the Joker's Robin now. That, like, that's the joke of Red Hood. Joker murdered him, or so everyone thought, and when he comes back, he takes on the mantle of the guy the Joker was before he became the Joker. He becomes Red Hood. That's the whole reason this whole thing is related to the Killing Joke, because that's where you have Red Hood. That's the big classic story where you have Red Hood turning into the Joker in the first place, falling into that vat of acid. And without a vat of acid, you have a twisted version of Robin, where he wears the mantle of his killer, and he is arguably as much of a villain as he is a hero. And I also like this idea that the Joker has been all along creating other Jokers, and that Batman has actually also been doing that with Robins. That past Jason Todd, he just keeps bringing, you know, making more Robins. And I wish that idea was brought more to the fore, because we don't really parallel that too much. It's kind of introduced and then dropped, but that was an idea that I thought was kind of interesting. And I just feel like you could run with either of those things. You could do sort of a comic version of the Return of the Joker from Batman Beyond, that movie, where we find out in flashbacks that after the adventures of Batman stuff, after Batman and the animated series, the Joker had created kind of a like scary Joker version of Robin out of Tim Drake. And you could have done something like that with Red Hood, but we just dance around that, both of those things as ideas, because it turns out that none of that is what any of this is actually about. It's all this big convoluted scheme from the real Joker, who is the comedian version, to make Batman like okay with Joe Chill so that he can be like Batman's real pain. That's what he says at the end of this. So the whole joke is you don't hate Joe Chill anymore. I'm going to show you how sad and pathetic and even sympathetic Joe Chill is. And so now you're not going to hate him like you used to. You don't need any of the rest of this if that's all you wanted to do, Joker. Like, he doesn't need these other two. He could just murder them, and then he could go kidnap Joe Chill, and then he could bring him to a warehouse, and then he could, like, hook him up to monitors because he's dying from cancer. And then he could say, hey, look, Batman, Joe Chill, this guy who murdered your parents, is just a person after all. And he could show him all the letters that Joe Chill has been writing to Bruce Wayne. Like, Geoff John is going out of his way to make Joe Chill as sympathetic as humanly possible. And I like some of that. I wish this story was one of these things. Like the, humanize Joe Chill, and then make that the big, like, last laugh the Joker has at the end story. That's kind of a cool idea, because at the end of this, and I'm getting way ahead of myself, but when we get to the end of this, we're gonna have see, all of this with Jason Todd is kind of pointless. We're gonna get to the end of this, and he's just gonna go, see, the joke's on you, Batman. Now that you don't hate Joe Chill, I can be your great pain. Okay. Then what was the point of this big convoluted plot where you're pretending like you want to create a new Joker? Like, none of this was about any of that. And he just did that to appease the other two Jokers. And I don't even fully understand why he needs them. And then once we realize that that's what he's after, there's really no reason for him to come out and let Batman know about the other Jokers. So the whole thing kind of turns into a mess. So Joker is getting closer and closer to breaking Jason Todd here, and he's, this is, I think, the criminal version. Anytime you see that kind of vacant expression, that's the criminal version, and he's just wanting to, I don't know, he's trying to prove to Jason that he's not actually worthy of being a Joker, because he's not, like, clever and intelligent enough, I guess. But then on the same page, this is such sloppy writing, on the same page he's like, well, it's just not in the car, it's not gonna work out, but we're hoping on the off chance that it does work out. And then he knocks him out and he says that he hopes that he becomes a Joker. Okay. Some really pretty action panels in dynamic art in this book, dynamic action stuff, I guess I should say, like Batgirl at the top of this page. And so, like these are all not like real Jokers, or like fully fleshed out realized Jokers, but the Joker is just doing Joker talks into a bunch of people. And I don't know if these are supposed to be like potential Jokers, or if it's just kind of what he's using as his henchmen right now. But anyway, so you get this kind of, horrifying stuff where Jason is coming out and saying, Batman, I blame you for everything. I hate you. You should have helped me. After, like, some of it is he kind of unfairly blames Batman because Batman knew or didn't know that he was dead, so it's not totally his fault. But it is his fault that he didn't try to do anything after that, regardless of the fact that Jason turned out to be a killer, and maybe especially because he turned out to be a killer. Like, if you think he's too far gone, you bring him in. You don't just let him stay out there and do stuff. I don't understand this. So then Jason is gonna go to Barbara's place and heal up, and and they're gonna have this kind of moment where they're appreciating each other for their shared trauma. Then Jason takes advantage of that and makes out with Barbara, and then she says, that was a bad idea, we shouldn't have done that, and then Jason's going to spend the whole rest of the book trying to get with her. This whole thing comes out of nowhere for me, and this is a place where I'm like, I don't know if there's some backstory there's some romantic backstory between them that I don't know about, or where this has been broached before, but she's very quickly is like, I'm not having any of this, and I don't know why she leans into the kiss like she seems to. That's a mistake. I guess it's kind of superficial, right? It reads like the thing they have in common is that they were both hurt by the Joker, so they're attracted to each other. But she is more upset with the fact that he killed the Joker than anybody else in this book. I should also say it's a little weird that nobody else shows up in this. We don't hear from Dick Grayson, we don't hear from Tim Drake, like nothing. It's just these characters because these are the ones that were most affected by the Joker, and they happen to be the ones that are around right now and able to help out Batman. Oh, okay, it seems a little bit convenient to me, but I don't like any of this kind of forced romance stuff. And then Joker is like, hey Joe Chill, tell me why you really killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. And like I said, it turns out that it has nothing to do with actually creating a new Joker, and it just has everything to do with Joker proving to Batman that he is the most important thing in his life. The end. So I've already talked about most of this issue as we've been going along. All of these pictures of other Jokers or other potential Jokers are not actually people who become Joker. So on first read, I thought for a second that it was going to be like, oh, over all this time, there's been like hundreds of these. No, these are just recent victims that I guess he's pretending like maybe he could turn into Jokers, but all of that is red herrings. And it's just so much less interesting than it could have been. I was really intrigued by that idea in the first place, that you could, because we never get to the brass tacks of what I thought this was going to be about, and I don't mean to say that it's bad because it didn't meet my expectations of what the story should have been, but considering that before the Three Jokers ideas started, the last time we saw the Joker, he was dead. And I was not the only person who was thinking this, who assumed that this is what this was going to be about. I thought this was going to be some kind of a clever explanation for why the Joker dies all the time and seems to come back easily. And this is not about that. It's just that there has been the one singular Joker the whole time, and he's got a couple of like extra versions of himself behind the scenes that he sometimes uses. That also think that they're as important as he is, and that they're the same Joker. So maybe sometimes they have, not the same Joker, but that they're legitimately also Jokers. Maybe they have their own schemes sometimes. I'm not sure. They seem to just all work in tandem all the time. So, I don't know. But Batman is going to come to appreciate Joe Chill, and, or not appreciate him, but forgive him for murdering his parents, and he's going to realize that he is a remorseful human being who has gotten a lot better over time. One thing also to keep in mind, I meant to say this earlier, is that he is dying. He has terminal cancer, and he is dying. And at the end of this book, he dies. There's a ticking time clock on Joe Chill, and instead of the Joker realizing that and rushing him to Batman and saying, before he dies, you need to know what kind of a person he is now so you can forgive him, he has this whole crazy, ridiculous scheme with the Three Jokers, and Joe Chill could die any minute and ruin all of his plans. I still don't understand why he doesn't just take him to Batman in the first place. So then, of course, they go to the Monarch Theater, and there's going to be this big showdown, and there's going to be this pointless speech from Joe Chill about why he killed Thomas and Martha Wayne, which I say it's pointless. I guess it matters in that Batman is going to, forgive him after this. So, you know, there's that. But again, none of this had anything to do. I love this Batman in shadow at the top there. It's wonderful. I wonder if this Batman can move his head. I'm going to assume, being in the 89 Batman suit, he cannot move his head. You got some clear homage there to Killing Joke. A whole lot of the Joker holding a camera in this book, because of course we have to do that. And then, like I said, I've pretty much talked about all of this already. So then they're sitting in the back of the paddy wagon, and there's a lot of, you know, kind of homage to Killing Joke here, too. I'm reminded of the opening scene where they're in that book, where they're sitting in the Joker's cell, you know, before we realize that it's not actually the Joker that he's sitting with. If memory serves, I think that's what happens in that scene. It's not important. And then this is the big reveal where he's going to say, I just wanted you to care more about me than anything else, and now I can be your great pain. It's like, okay, well, you didn't have to do any of the stuff that you did in this except for grab Joe Chill and bring him to Batman, the end. Like, there's no story in this, really. So now I can be your greatest pain. Me. Okay. And then Joe Chill dies, like, immediately after that. Really convenient timing. So earlier, Batgirl or somebody asked Batman, like point blank, do you know, I think it is Batgirl, do you know who the Joker is? Because they're thinking that they might finally get his real identity in this. And he says, if I knew, I would tell you. And he's just flat out is lying about that. And he tells Alfred at the very end of this book that he has known, like, he says, I'm Batman. Like, I'm the world's greatest detective. I've known since the first week who the Joker really was. And he says that they try to make it a sympathetic thing where the whole reason that he won't, this is the last page, the whole reason that he won't tell anybody but Alfred about that is because the guy who had the family before he turned into the Joker, that family's still alive. So we flash back, and this is where it gets real retroactive. I just didn't need this, like, adding on to this stuff. We go back to the Killing Joke, and that really ambiguous, and I've talked about this in other videos, that really ambiguous scene where we're told that there was that something with a baby bottle heater or something, and his family died, and that always seemed really far-fetched and weird, and like there was something else going on. And apparently the family did not die and they were fine, and I don't really understand what was happening with that. I always assumed that there was something more sinister at work, but I guess they fled, or they were under some kind of police protection or something. I really don't know what was going on with that, but they're still alive, and Bruce knows about it, and so he's been protecting them all along, so he can't tell anyone who the Joker really is. Okay, I think Batgirl would understand that. You can't tell her that you know. You can tell Alfred that you know, but you won't tell Alfred what his name is. But you can't tell Batgirl that you know, but you won't tell her what his name is. Okay. I mean, Batman's just kind of a jerk in this. And then there's also this really weird bit where, and it's really melodramatic, where Jason writes this letter to Barbara, and he's like, I think we'd be great together. We should get together, even though you clearly didn't want anything to do with me. And, oh yeah, I'm a murderer, and you don't like that I'm a murderer. Like, I'm against everything you believe in, but we both got hurt by the Joker, so we should be together. And even though they just shared a kiss, and again, there may be some other stuff before this that I don't know about, but it reads in this, because that's never talked about, like this is the first inkling of there being an item. And he says, I think we'd be great together. I'll drop everything. I'll stop being Red Hood for you. Because that doesn't put pressure on the girl, right? Where you're like, just give me a chance. I'm going to change my whole life around for you and devote myself to you and make everything about you. That's essentially what he says here. And just give me a chance. Like, that's a lot of pressure. That's too much commitment. You haven't even gone on one date yet, and you're a murderer. But then the scene is really strange because I can't totally tell what's going on. He, like, writes a note, and then he puts it up on the door with tape. And then we just have scenes of Barbara running. Because the whole thing is, she went through some really vigorous physical therapy, and now her legs are, like, the best they've ever been, so we have to constantly see her running. And then it falls off the door, and then a janitor sweeps it up, and so she's never going to read that note. And, like, what am I supposed to get from that? Like, is that supposed to be, like, sad and tragic to me? I don't know why I'm supposed to want that relationship to happen. Like, that can only end in tears, right? Like, there's no way that that's not a really bad idea. I don't know. Anyway, this is a very, very strange read. So what do I like about this? I like the art a lot. It's a lot of fun to look at. I think some of, like I said, there are a lot of pages that I think could be cut. I don't think it needs to be as long as it is. I don't love all the homaging to Boland's work from The Killing Joke, just because I don't like how much we're trying to add to that and retroactively build on it. I don't think any of that stuff works, and so I kind of wish it wasn't so much of an homage to Killing Joke. Having said that, I think that he is both aping Boland and going his own way enough at the same time. Like, I think it's a really good I don't know, blend of styles isn't maybe not the right way to put it. It's homage before it's just ripping it off. Like, there's places we're kind of in faces, particularly like with the Joker's family at the end. He's straight up doing Boland, but that kind of makes sense because we just saw, the flashback of them. But, like, it's Fabok's art, but kind of homaging and then building on Boland. So, like, so I like that a lot. I like the 89 Batsuit. I think that's super cool. I like the humanizing of Joe Chill and Bruce forgiving him. I think all that stuff is really touching, and I kind of want the whole book to be about that. I like the initial mystery of the three Jokers, just the way it's set up in the first couple of pages. Here are these three people or sets of people that these Jokers have murdered, and they each seem to be based in archetypes that we're familiar with over the years. What exactly is happening? Is there even a real Joker? And then after that, it's just not an interesting mystery to me. But the initial setup is really cool, and I get the sense that where it ultimately goes with all the Joe Chill stuff, and especially with the Red Hood stuff, was never the original intent. I don't know. I've not looked into the background of any of this. I don't know if any of that information is around, like, how this turned into this, why it got compromised, why it's been years since we finally saw this story. But I would be really surprised if this, in Geoff John's head, starts as a Joe Chill story. I really would. It's an odd piece. Anyway, I have rambled on long enough. Thanks a lot for watching, folks. Sure appreciate it. That is my review of Three Jokers, and I will come back with you for more stuff real soon. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.